So it's my great pleasure to welcome Silvio Micali, who is actually, as we see, he's a professor at MIT. He's been there for 30 years or more, actually, and also founder and spearhead of Algorand. Now, Silvio is a Turing Award winner. With Turing Award is Nobel Prize of Computing. There's actually quite a few Nobel, in that sense, Turing Award winners in the world out there. So we have the great pleasure of you being here together with Shafi Codemaster in 2012 for the achievements you've had in. And let me just mention a couple of words. This in computational complexity approaches and novel techniques in pseudorandom functions, in zero knowledge proofs that he's developed with a number of people, but made absolutely fantastic contributions to. Some of the new things we're seeing is with verified random functions. I mean, all these things may sound very technical, but at the core of modern security and at the core actually of modern next generation blockchain distributed ledger technology. So thank you very much for coming. Welcome.
Thank you, Fritz.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, everyone. And so Algorand, I'd like to introduce this section on blockchain. And so let's remind ourselves about the blockchain promise. There are a lot of promises here, right? Who does not like a database which cannot be altered? Who does not like transparency? Who does not like the ability to interact with trust with somebody else you have never known? So the applications are de facto unlimited. However, there is a little bit of an open secret. Blockchains, as defined, they don't quite exist. All this, wave of the decentralization that is coming, right, that everybody talks about, where is this decentralization? In reality, blockchains have been largely being aspirational. And by the way, I have nothing against aspiration, because it's our destiny as humans to aspire to higher and higher things. However, eventually we must sustain these aspirations with technology, otherwise they will remain, in America it's called a pie in the sky. It's excellent, very good, however, nobody can actually have it. So don't take my word, because Buterin agrees with me here, because its famous blockchain trilemma says that in any blockchain, you can at most satisfy two of the following three properties: security, scalability, and decentralization. Now, let's, for a moment, figure out what does this mean. So assume I am here a blockchain by design, I open my shop, you come as a customer, you say, you want a blockchain? Excellent, I'll give you the blockchain right for you. You just tell me, of these three properties, which one you don't like. Oh, you don't want security in your blockchains. Great choice. No, well, actually, security, I want to have it. Okay, then you don't want the decentralization. Well, if you don't want the decentralization, what do you want a blockchain? Or perhaps you don't like scalability. What are you going to do with your blockchain? Interacts with friends and family? There are no good choices in the blockchain trilemma. It's like if I told you, do you prefer to be shot on the left knee or on the right knee? You go, thank you very much, but if I could, I prefer not to be. So there are no good choices, but fortunately, the blockchain trilemma is false. Yes, it has been true for a while. 2,000 and counting blockchains do not satisfy simultaneously all these properties, but this does not mean this is only evidence the problem is hard, not the problem is impossible. There are impossible things in life, but fortunately, there are much fewer than we think. So the truth is that the blockchains that we know and love, the blockchains we want to implement, are actually very sophisticated technological products. And so we need more technology to attain our goals. So let me tell you what is the problem. The problem is how to implement all these, the fact that everybody can read, everybody can write, and nobody can alter the data in this distributed database. Building the chain, so making sure that the content of the blocks cannot be altered and the order of the blocks cannot be altered either, that is easy. That uses, prehistoric cryptography, meaning prehistoric and cryptography, 50-year-old cryptography. The whole difficulty is about choosing the next block. Who should choose the next block to append on the chain? That is actually the difficult part. And that's where various approaches differ. And there are here the three most popular approaches. The first one is proof of work. That is the original one by Mr. or Mrs. Nakamoto. And it was a great idea, was the first idea, to say, you know what? Why should be me, why should be you? Let's have a computational race. Here is a very complex cryptographic puzzle. The first one to solve it has the right to append his or her block on the blockchain. Ready? Compute, 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 compute. Okay, so what is the problem with this approach? A is very slow because you must produce a block every 10 minutes, roughly. You must shoot for that. Why? Because otherwise, if you try to shorten the production time of a block, you are going to increase tremendously the number of forks. You know that the chains once in a while forks. That happens when two people solve the riddle a few seconds of each other. If you budget for one block, one solution every 10 minutes, occasionally you have a fork and you can deal with it. But if you shrink the solution time to a minute, then the probability of having two solutions a few seconds of each other goes all the way up, and you get a gigantic spaghetti forking over forking, which, you know, where is the longest chain is no longer discernible. So it is slow, but actually it's also very expensive, and it wastes a tremendous amount of energy, right? And it requires tremendous amount of investments in hardware, and so on and so forth. So now, slow and expensive is hard to sell. I mean, fast and expensive I may understand, but slow and expensive I do not understand. And by the way, not by design, but it happens to become a very centralized system. Because, for instance, a Bitcoin is controlled by 3 mining pools. Is this decentralized? No. Nakamoto did not wire in these mining pools, but the system somehow generated the ugly heads of centralization is always lurking behind, and whenever it finds a crack, it perks in. Okay, so slow, expensive, and actually centralized de facto. Next stage. Next stage is a delegated proof of stake. What does this mean? Well, that is a simple idea. Perhaps we can just say, look at these 21 people over there. Don't they look honest? They look honest. Then let me tell you, they will remain honest forever. So why don't we put them in charge to select the next block on behalf of all of us? Is this decentralized? No, this actually has not even pretends to be decentralized. That is centralized from the get-go. So you put 21 people in charge. And by the way, even though they are honest, you know, denial of service attack cannot be certainly denied to 21 people. Everybody can actually. And so if you mount a denial of service attack against these 21 people, their buffers are full of junk. And what should these 21 people do? Look for valid transactions to put in the next block and form the next block. But if they don't see anything but junk messages, how the hell are they going to put the block? The whole blockchain grinds to a halt. All right, next stop, bonded proof of stake. What does this mean? It's another simple idea. It's to say, well, bonded proof of stake is, well, we allow not 20, not 200, not 2,000, but as many people as they want to put some money in the middle of the table where they cannot touch it. The manager is hostage. And the one who put the money in the middle of the table are the ones who are going to select the next block on behalf of all of us. And if they misbehave, their money is confiscated. Wow, that should work. Does it? Let me ask a simpler question. How much of your disposable income can you afford to put hostage in the middle of the table? Okay, not invested in anything, just hostage. And the answer is very little. So in a system like this, the danger is that you make it possible, never mind possible, you make it easy for big thieves with deep pockets to put a disproportionate amount of money in the middle of the table for the sole purpose of controlling the blockchain. But so what? If they misbehave, we confiscate their money. Not so easy. Because there are bad people, we agree. But the number of bad and stupid people at the same time is much smaller. So in order to be caught and having your money confiscated, you must do something so bad and so publicly bad that you never do it. So let me tell you a bunch of things that you can do. Assume you want to do an auction on a blockchain, right? Oh, wow, there is an entire building put up for auction. I want to put my bids. Oh, but then I have competitors. I don't like competitors. I go to these other people who are in charge of producing the block and say, do me a favor, don't put the bids on my competitors. Or actually put the bids on me, my cousins, so we look legit, but it's all in the family. If I bribe them like this, will you be able to confiscate your money? How? You're going to say, you don't put my bid, confiscate Silvio's money. Your bid? Which bid? I didn't see it. So, you see, it's not so very easy. So, let me tell you, highlighting the common flaw of these prior approaches. And the common flaw, in my view, is that they tie the fate of the whole economy to a small part of the economy. And that is a recipe for disaster, right? Because you say, well, if the small part somehow acts against the economy, they lose value of what they own. Sure, but if what they own is so little, who cares if I lose it? If you make me whole by fiat currency, I'll do anything to damage myself and the others, because I only own very little. So who is the small piece of economy in proof of work? The miners. What fraction of the global economy is represented by the miners? You need a microscope to see the miners, right? Because in the all big things, the miners don't count a lot. So that's not a good strategy. So in the delegated proof of stake, these are the 21 delegates, right? In bonded proof of stake are the guys who don't mind to have the money hostage in the middle of the table, and so on and so forth. So, okay, so only say, so, well, listen, criticizing is easy, we have to do something. So, I locked myself up for a few months and decided what would I do instead, and that's what I come up with, right? It's going to be a little bit different than the usual blockchain, and certainly starting from scratch is a good idea. So let me tell you what type of approach Algorand has, and that is pure proof of stake, so defined. No money is ever hostage. Where is the money? Well, it should be in your wallet, in your finger strip, invested in all the financial tools that blockchain offers to you. And when you look at all the money productively employed in the blockchain in their totality, if the majority of this money is in honest hands, the system works, period. So who can subvert the system? A conspiracy of the majority of the money of the system. But if you have a majority of the money of the system, the notion that you shoot yourself collectively on the foot to destroy what you have a majority of, it doesn't quite, look very rational. So it's a much more secure approach. And what is the mechanism for Algorand to choose the next block? Believe it or not, is to agree on the next block. And what type of agreement? Byzantine agreement. Why Byzantine agreement? Because that is agreement in the presence of a very powerful adversary. So let me tell you what it means. It was a protocol defined by Peace, Shostak, and Lamport in the 80s, and is a communication protocol, say, by the people in this room, such that if the majority of the people in this room are honest, we guarantee two properties. The first property is the agreement property, which means if before the conversation each one has arbitrary values in mind, at the end of the conversation, each one of us that is honest, following the honest steps of the protocol, outputs the same value. And property number two, just in case we all started the conversation with the same value, then not only at the end we should output a common value, we should output that very value we started with, right? And that is true no matter what the enemy can do. Right? Up to a third of these guys can do anything else, they conspire, do things, nothing shakes this system. So he says, what is the analogy here? What are these values? Well, you know what these values are, is that assume that you've seen 100 blocks so far, and we want to construct the 100 plus first block. Then these values are, my value is, in my opinion, what the next block ought to be. Your value is what, in your opinion, the next block ought to be. And because transactions are propagated at finite time, even for the speed of light, whatever I see and whatever you see is largely the same, as big overlap, but not exactly the same. For somebody else, the block might actually be less, right? So that is the idea. So we are going to agree on the block, and we are going to agree on a single block. Wow! If we do this, this algorithm of Byzantine agreement was designed in the 80s. Why don't we take it in, plug it in, and we have a blockchain? Well, not so fast, because this Byzantine agreement is extremely slow, defined slow. The maximum number of participants in a Byzantine agreement in a practical application was 12. 12 in a blockchain with possibly billions of participants? This makes no sense. And moreover, the participants must be common knowledge, must be known in advance and fixed. In a permissionless blockchain where everybody can come and go, and who knows who is participating right now in a large blockchain. So there are some work to be done. And one of the work we've done at Algorand is come up with a new consensus mechanism, which is a Byzantine agreement, not an adulterated, simplified version of it, like practical Byzantine fault tolerance, which sounds good, but has nothing to do with Byzantine agreement. We deliver the original definition of Byzantine agreement on a planetary scale and an extreme efficiency. Okay, let's assume we have already done it. What are the advantages? Let me tell you how things would go in action. What did I say? That the difficulty in a blockchain is to agree on the next block. But there is one block which requires no agreement. That is the genesis block, the first block. Why? Because it's part of the very definition of the system. The second block, we must agree. The third block also, but the first comes for free. Next to the genesis block, we have a favor, a universal symbol of lightness and effortlessness. And as this favor gently falls to the ground, the Algorand chain unfolds. And he says, gee, Silvio, but that looks very easy. How about forks? How about proof of work? Well, guess what? There are no forks in Algorand, and there is no proof of work. Why there are no forks? Because remember, the majority agrees on a block. The majority who is honest agrees on a block. So the same majority who are honest cannot agree on a block and another block. So there is one block, never forks. That actually is a good property, because when things forks, if you have been paid in a block, you don't know if you've been paid or not, because if there is a fork, and your branch may die and your payment with it. So what do? You just wait that your block becomes deeper and deeper and deeper on the chain, say 10 deep, and then you say, well, maybe I consider myself paid. Just think about it. You pay the bill at a restaurant, a block is produced in 10 minutes, the waiter says, just hang on a moment. So, okay, now 10 minutes, can I go? Not yet, I want to be at least 6 deep in a block for an hour. You have to play cards with a waiter, you have to do a long conversation. This no fork is a good idea. And why no proof of work? Because there is no computational puzzle to solve. We just have a very efficient, I claim, I agree, it's a claim so far, I didn't back it up, but if you believe that there is a very efficient algorithm for Byzantine agreement, there is no work also. And why is this important? Because forks say that all transactions are final. Once a block appears, it stays on the blockchain forever. If your payment is in that block, you have been paid right away, you can free to go. And the other one, no proof of work, means easy participation. Rather than delegating to a few miners with a huge investments in infrastructure, special purpose ASICs, hardware consuming tons of electricity, you can actually participate. You should participate. You are welcome to participate, and you can participate. So, in summary, the assumption of Algorand is that the majority of the money is in honest hands, and the technical advantage is, again, the computation is trivial. Just a few addition, comparisons, verification of a digital signature, nothing to write home about. The system is truly decentralized because everybody can participate and there are not two classes of users. There are not the users and the miners, the users and the delegates, the users and nothing else. There is just us, the user, okay, period. And as I was saying, finality of payments, because there are no forks in Algorand, actually, I'm lying a little bit, because a fork may occur, but with very low probability. How low? With probability 10 to the minus 18. You say, gee, that is a very strange number. Of course it's strange, because I made it up. So, but let me tell you why I made it up. Because 10 to the 18 happens to be, our friend the physicists tell us, the number of seconds from the Big Bang until now. In other words, if you produce a block a second, which is a pretty good clip, in the age of the universe you may see a fork. Let me tell you, I will not see a fork, and I suspect, even though I wish you a very long life, but you are not going to see a fork either, okay? With this type of thing, nobody cares. And the scalability, you can generate a block as fast as you can be propagated. So you don't have to have artificial delay to separate the forks or diminish, because it's not no forks, so you can produce as fast as you need them. And then you have security against a bad adversary. How bad? Very bad, okay. So let me tell you what this guy can do. He can immediately corrupt any player he wants, provided that he cannot corrupt more than a third of a player, which is a lot. And he can actually perfectly control and coordinate the player he corrupts. And this guy can actually attack not only the protocol, that's easy, but also the communication network on which the protocol is run. He can cut wires, he can manipulate the routers, all kinds of things. However, Algorand remains secure. Do we need to be so adversarial in designing a blockchain? Yes. Why? Because a truly secure, decentralized, and scalable blockchain should manage value in the trillions of dollars, right? Or euros. So, when you have such much money, bad guys are going to pop up like mushrooms after the rain. So we must be prepared for it, okay? No easy morals of adversary, strong morals. All right, I'd like to also tell you how Algorand works at a high level. Algorand works at high level in two magic phases, where the magic is actually replaced by mathematics. But I must confess that it is easier for me to talk about magic than it is to talk about mathematics, okay? So let's stick to the magic so far. Phase one, the proposal phase. By magic, a random token is selected among all the tokens in circulation. This token must belong to somebody, and that somebody proposes a block. End of phase one. Phase two, by magic, 1,000 coins are selected at random among all the ones in circulation, and their owners become publicly known by magic. And what do? They agree on the block proposed by the first person. They digitally sign it. And so if you find, say, a block that are the digital signature of, say, 700 of these 1,000 people, that is the next block. Why do we need a phase two? Because in any society, and a blockchain is no exception, there is a percentage of bad actors, criminals. Maybe 1%, frankly, are much less, okay? But maybe 2%. Maybe if we are unfortunate enough to live in a very dangerous society, 10%. I want to ruin myself, 20%, okay? But the bad actors are never, by definition, in the majority. Because what is a society? It's a bunch of people who somehow follows some rules. If nobody follows the rules, the jungle is a better organized place. So, let's assume that we live in a very dangerous society. 10% of us are criminal. There's a lot of criminals right here already. And so what happens? That if you select a random user, 1 in 10 of the times is a bad actor. And what can a bad actor do? He cannot steal your money because you signed your payments. That he cannot do. But he can manipulate what the next block is. He can tell you the block is X. He can tell me the block is Y, he can tell her the block is Z, thereby generating a confusion. You don't have anymore a chain, you have, some random stuff. That's why we need phase 2. The phase 2, now we are essentially guaranteed to have an honest majority in these 1,000 random users. Why? Because if 90% of the people are honest and you select 1,000 of random, you do the computation. What is the probability that 501 of these randomly selected users are actually malicious? It's very, 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 very small. Okay? That is the idea. So, this one random token is selected and the owner proposes a block, 1,000 random tokens are selected and the owners agree on the block. That's how Algorand works. You say, gee, Silvio, thank you very much for your high-level description. I have one question. One question? You should have plenty of questions. But we have the time to investigate only one. Which one? The one most popular in my experience in describing Algorand, which is, oops, my Italian subconscious started writing and then I continue in English. Okay, ignore the Italian. The question is, who chooses the committee? That's a fair question, because if I understood correctly, is this 1,000 member committee that has all the power, right? That makes Algorand secure. Assume the answer of the question where, if you don't mind, I choose the committee. Everybody says, well, you want to do something decentralized? This is terrible. Assume that instead I tell you, oh, all right, just humanity first has a long discussion to agree on 1,000 people committee, who then agrees on the block. Good luck, we all die before we agree on anything, right? So that's over. So what do we do in Algorand? Something a little bit unorthodox. These committee members, they choose themselves. They say, what? Have I heard correctly? That's the great idea that the people choose themselves? Oh, it's a terrible idea. Because if I'm bad, what am I going to do? I'm going to choose myself for this committee, and then I choose myself for the next committee, and I'm going to choose myself for the committee forever, right? Because I want to be approving any block. But not so fast, because how do can you choose yourself? Each one of us can run his or her own individual lottery in the privacy of your computer. Think about like a slot machine that only goes down the lever only once. So you pull the lever, case 1, you win the lottery. In such a case, you have a winning ticket, a mathematical proof that you are part of this committee. Case 2, you don't win. In fact, most of the people don't win. You choose the probability of winning so that you have 1,000 winners, right? More or less. So if you win, you propagate to the network your winning ticket and your opinion about the block. If you don't win, you can do anything you want, but your opinion is not taken in consideration. Okay? That's the idea. All right. So let me argue that this way of proceeding is really decentralized. I'm not saying that 1,000 people are selected and put there for a month or for a week or for a day or for an hour. No. I'm just saying that 1,000 committees are selected, and next time is a totally different 1,000 people committee, and next time another 1,000 people committee. Once in a while, 2 committees may have a member in common. It could happen, right? But it's totally random, so it's really truly decentralized. And why is this super scalable? All right, how long does it take to each one of us to run this lottery? A microsecond. That is fast. Okay, but if in this microsecond you realize, oh, I'm one of 1,000 winners, what do? You propagate your winning ticket in a short message. Now, can 1,000 people propagate 2 small things? Yes, this is not the problem. That's why it scales, okay? And let me now argue that this is super secure. Let's assume that I'm the big scary guy that I told you about before. What do I want to do? I want to corrupt the committee, but I have a problem. Who is in the committee? Is it you? Is it you? Is this lady in Bangkok? Is this guy in Paris? I don't know. Whom should I corrupt? I don't know. But The people who actually win the lottery, they come up and say, here is my winning ticket and here is my pin of a block. Now I know whom I should corrupt, and I corrupt them right away. But so what? Whatever they had to say, they've already said it. And their winning ticket and opinion about the block are virally propagating over the network, and I cannot put them back into the bottle no more than any government can put back in the bottle a message virally propagated by WikiLeaks. So the system is secure because beforehand you don't know whom you should corrupt, and after the facts it's too late to corrupt them. So at this elementary level, I'll leave it here, but that's somehow how you can solve a trilemma, right? By doing things in an unorthodox way somehow it helps, because you can achieve things which were not things. All right, so let me tell you a little bit the roadmap, because Algorand is a new consensus algorithm that somehow solves the trilemma, but that is only the backbone. What comes next? Next thing is somehow Dutch auction, vault, atomic square swaps, smart square contracts, privacy, blah, 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 governance, okay? And you need all these things to implement what we really want to implement, which is a borderless economy. I do not have time to describe a little bit our roadmap in two details, but whatever is highlighted, the first three items, I'd like to give you some idea. Let me start with Dutch auctions. The Algorand Foundation, actually the day after tomorrow, is going to start selling tokens of Algorand. How do they sell it? By a Dutch auction. Why? Because how do you sell stuff? So assume that instead that you say, you know what, I'm here selling tokens in this new system, and say, what is the price? One token, $2. Question, is this a fair price? Oh, that's the wrong question. The only question you have to find yourself, answer for yourself is how many tokens you want. That's a fixed price auction. There is nothing fair about it, right? What is good about auction is that the Algorand Foundation does not decide the price of the token. You do. That's what an auction is for. And everybody who wins tokens at the auction pays the same price. That's fair too, right? And by the way, they also have some downside protection, which means if you buy a token at auction and you don't like it, a year later, you have 1 week to return it and we'll give you back 90% of the money if you paid more than $1, or whatever you pay minus 10 cents if the price is below $1. Okay? Why? Because it's another way to say we want fairness, because we want to make sure that you feel fairly treated. Anytime you intersect for the first time the blockchain, and what is the first time? When you buy your first algo. And two, we want to say we stand by your product. If you don't like it, we're happy to return it. Okay, that's a refund policy of this time. And let me tell you that whatever the Algorand Foundation does for its own token, anybody can do to tokenize anything you want. So we have here a new tokenization mechanism, right? So think about the tokenization. Assume that you are a developers and you have built in Copenhagen a beautiful Danish style, Danish architecture office building. Now you want to sell it. It's fair enough. You are an architect, you bought the land, you construct it, now you want to sell it. To whom you sell it? You sell it to a bunch of a few local billionaires who specialize in real estate. When the buyers are so few, they essentially make up the price for you. You have a very little thing. Assume that you're building on a blockchain. Well, then you can sell it to a few more billionaires further away in the world. But assume that you sell the building to a Dutch auction. What does this mean? Assume you want to tokenize the building. You allow fractional ownership of a building. Then you allow me from Boston to bid $10,000 in the hope to get a little bit of piece of your building. Now, that is a win-win situation, because it's win for me because I never before had the ability to directly participate to a financial opportunity like this. Usually I can buy a mutual fund who specializes in real estate, right? That's the way it works. And you, as a builder, you really realize the value of what you build, because you're not in the hands of a few players. You can actually sell it to anybody who wants to participate. And so the part is that these bids are going to be on chain. So with great transparency, when you post a bid, you see your bid, oh, here is my bid. You also see the bids of your competitors. So you realize that you are paying the right price, and you realize whether or not you truly win. And second of all, nobody can be censored, right? You remember that part that I said that if the system is centralized, maybe your bids don't get in. Not here, because the chain is unforkable, which means that you know for sure that the price, what the current price in a Dutch auction, the price goes down, 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 down. What price you see currently is the same thing that everybody else sees, because the chain does not fork. So, chains fork rarely. Well, but they do fork. What if they fork when your building is up for sale? That's not good. So if you are in a blockchain that doesn't fork, that's better for auctions and for tokenizing things. And second of all, the chain is truly decentralized. So again, I don't even know who I should corrupt to tell you don't put the bids. That's a big advantage, okay? So at this point, hey, you know what? I'm better off tokenize things. And in essence, I really believe that the fair tokenization of the world is something which everybody benefits, because essentially means that you don't need these fat cat intermediaries to run your financial affairs. Right? The intermediaries, they would love to be in the game, but the seller and the buyers are better off. So but the intermediaries are not better off, okay? So you can actually squeeze them out. So what is Vault? As I told you before, centralization rises its ugly egg anytime again. And centralization rises its ugly egg when participating is costly and fewer people can participate. That causes centralization. Let me tell you, however, that if you have a scalable blockchain that produces blocks every few seconds rather than every 10 minutes, what happens to the blockchain? It becomes bigger and bigger. Pretty soon, it gets a terabyte. It will get there, right? So if you want to come on board on the blockchain, in the typical blockchain, to come on board, which means, oh, yes, welcome, come join us, download this terabyte and let's start acting together. Well, it's not so easy to download a terabyte. It takes 3 months. And in these 3 months, the chain has been going a little bit farther, so you have to catch up on that too. And so very few people can actually store, because it's expensive to store things and to look at whatever you store. So Vault is somehow allows to have efficient onboarding and quindi an efficient chain growth and efficient information retrieval. Let me tell you what the idea is. Assume you join the chain when the chain has already a terabyte. Should you download it? No. What do you need? You need a very compact piece of information that allows you to grow the chain, proposing blocks, voting on blocks, being part of the committee, with the same ability of somebody who was there from day one and has been storing all the elements of the chain. There is no advantage that they do have over you. And by the way, because you receive this compact piece of information, you'll also receive a compact proof that this piece of information is actually correct. So otherwise, I say, yes, come join the chain. Here is a wrong piece of information, right? So that doesn't work. So that's how it works. And 5 years from now you need to store another terabyte. Maybe you spare yourself the first terabyte, but now you do. No, because Vault allows you to keep and updating a compact piece of information. With this you start, and then as you continue, whatever you store, this piece of information changes, but it's always compact. That's the idea. Okay. And that's already, well, what is the power that somebody who has been there from the very beginning, he has been storing all the chain, has? Well, these are the guys who can answer archival questions. So if you just join, you get this piece of information and you can grow going forward, but if somebody asks you, by the way, what was the second transaction of the third block of 5 years ago. You don't know it, right? Only somebody was there storing the chain knows it. And so what Vault does is that it allows them to answer. They are the only ones who can answer, but they cannot make up stuff. When you answer some archival question, again, you have the ability to present a proof of what is correct. So I'd like even pay you for your information. Here is $1, retrieve this for me, but I pay only if you give me a proof of whatever you give me now is correct. Right? That is the idea. So that is a technological way to approach centralization due to storage. And the point is, we have to be vigilant because centralization is going to keep on rising, so we must beat them back. And who is going to beat them back? Technology. And by the way, yes, sometimes you may actually have incentives because you say you may want to charge $1 if you say, I'm storing everything. I mean, I'm happy to store it as Algorand Inc. The Algorand Foundation is happy to store it. A few players are into storage. But even you may have reason to storage because there's going to be a market for retrieval of information. So at least you can make some money legitimately this way. So the other thing that I want to tell you is atomic swaps, atomic square swaps. What does atomic square mean? These are atomic swaps which are truly atomic, hence atomic square, okay? Because what is an atomic swap? Well, it is something, the bread and butter of trade. You have some asset X that I want, and I have some asset Y that you want. Maybe either X or Y is money. Or maybe you want to swap my asset for your asset plus a little bit more of money, right? Whatever it is, that is. In a blockchain, you can give me no asset, no problem. You sign, is a transaction, you pay a small transaction fee, you post on the chain, your asset is mine. Thank you very much. Now you have a problem. How are you going to get the asset from me that you want? Right? So therefore, what people have are these atomic swaps, which, let me tell you, they are not atomic. They take many steps, and it's a song and dance. I go with a little step. Why tentative step? Because I'm afraid you're going to cheat me. You go with another one. And I'm slowly moving, clogging each other in a web in which nobody can move, and maybe at the end they can swap, right? So there are time locks, hash locks. Essentially, I must give you enough time to react in case I'm cheating. And, you want to have enough time to react. So that is how these things are very cumbersome and not at all atomic. Instead, so what we are going to do in Algorand works like this. There is, in each block, a commitment to all assets, including the fact that your asset X, my asset Y. And essentially, I can, if I want to swap, and I'm the first player, I can agree by digital signature on I'm transferring my asset to you, and by the way, on your transferring your asset to me. My signature alone is not enough for the asset transfer to take place. It requires your signature. So when I propagate my signature, I have no idea if you are propagating your signature of the same thing. But I know that if my signature alone is not enough, so you propagate, if two signatures are occurring, that is needed for the transfer. Now that is not needed, because if I sign that I transfer my asset to you, how do you know that I have not transferred to somebody else in between? So what I'm going to do is do that, and you're going to do the same. I'm going to give you not only my signature of the transfer agreement, but also a proof that I own item X up to the last block. And because the next block has not yet come up, I cannot have transferred to anybody else. And if I do this with two people in the same blocks, then the verifiers will put in either the first transaction or the second transaction, but not both. So in other words, by having these proofs, you allow an ordinary verifier, committee members, or whatever we call them, of these things, to say, gee, that is a legitimate transaction. Because these two guys want to transfer these assets, and each one of them owned the asset up to a block ago. So I can, even though I have no idea, assume the asset is houses, who knows which house, assume the second asset is a boat, I want to trade an apartment for a yacht, who knows what. I have no idea who knows which boat. But if you give me the proof, what do I like here? Right? So therefore, you post this in a blockchain, and that's it. And it's a single transaction, okay? And the new commitment of the thing is orchestrated mathematically so that it updates accordingly. So you have a single transaction. That's why nobody can cheat the other, because either this transaction enters the chain and the swap has occurred, or it doesn't enter the chain and I can sell the house to somebody else. And I believe that is what trading ought to be, because an economy is not only about payments. In fact, actually, I would say more fundamentally than payments. Payments are just a way to transfer assets. So more fundamental than payment is an atomic swap. So you must have an atomic swap, and Algorand are going to give you not as a complicated smart contract, but as a layer one in order to really do an economy. So let me wrap it up, because there are 10 minutes more to go, and to say you are going to see there are 2,000 blockchains. I think more than one is going to be useful to humanity and continue. But I believe the ones with technology are the ones which for sure will remain in the final set, right? So technology is really somehow what is needed to power the borderless economy. And speaking of technology, I would love to leave you with an image of the Pont du Gard in southern France. It's a Roman bridge. What is actually quite beautiful. In fact, people go there for vacation with their pleasure boats down there. But what is the peculiarity of this bridge? It actually has been a bridge for 2,021 years. Okay? And it's so strong constructed that until 2005, they allow cars to go across the bridge. Okay, so that's the car level. Right now, there is only pedestrians. And before then, chariots, right? And so that is a marvelous piece of architecture that has enabled to unite the people living across the river to interact with each other and to transact with each other. And I believe that the blockchain technology will be as enabling to us to come together as humanity to transact with each other, and it's going to be as beautiful as any other physical infrastructure that we have built. Thank you.
We have time for some questions. Yeah.
About one, just to make sure we give a chance to somebody
just
else.
one.
Okay.
So can Algorand succeed without issuing tokens, without the tokenization?
Well, Algorand is going to issue tokens. So June 19, which is the day after tomorrow, there is going to be the first auction of a token.
Algorand one without tokenization.
Oh, without tokenization. I believe that no one can really succeed without tokenization. I think tokenization really is a fundamental property of a blockchain. Because what is the alternative to tokenization? Tokenization allows to give small pieces to people who have even little money, and everybody can benefit, right? Just imagine. So let's think about Dutch auction. Is Dutch auction a novelty? No. Your neighbors invented and used it for a few centuries, okay? In fact, who uses the Dutch auction right now? Governments. My government, your government, to, for instance, auction off bonds. So the Federal Reserve sells bonds via a Dutch auction. But to whom? To Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, in a room like this, to say, my price is $10, $9.9, 9.9, 9.8. That's how it's conducted, in a kind of room. So these guys buy the bonds for cheap, and then what do? they jack up the prices, and they offer to you and me. Is this fair? No. So, I mean, what is the point of having a blockchain if you don't have a tokenization that allows people to actually participate directly with whatever they can afford to a direct sale? Now, I don't know why it was done in a room like this, and by the way, these people are friends. So they're not good. So pretty much the price is not exactly the price perhaps the Fed expects, okay? Let's leave it there. They are too cozy with each other, maybe. So here I believe that direct participation is really something which is a game changer. That is a win-win. Why shouldn't the government not allow its own citizens to express their faith in their own government and buying their own bonds at a better price? And the government gets actually more value out of it. There may be many reasons, but one of the reasons is technological. So the people in a room, it is very clear what is the price that the auctioneers does, and then how it decreases, everybody sees the same thing. But if you want to open up to the planet, well, how do you know that everybody's seeing the same thing that you're seeing? And that's why the no-forking and the decentralization nature and the scalability of the blockchain. Otherwise, you cannot handle bids coming from all over the world, right? And you cannot have certainty that you are talking about the same thing. So if you ask me, there is a lot of room for just payments. And it's not the end of the game. I mean, payments and tokenization is one of the main goals of a blockchain. The one that I have to say is dearest to my heart is the democratization of finance. You must, and I'm saying financial freedom is a fundamental freedom. Because if you tell somebody you are free, but you have no money to do anything, so what is it you do with this freedom? So I think you want to make sure that everybody can participate and in a direct fashion, and this will generate prosperity for a larger group of people. Yeah.
So I think the Algorand algorithm is wonderful, and also I think it's correct because we formally verified it now.
Oh, excellent. Good. Oh, I'm glad to.
But even if the algorithm is completely correct, then you have smart contracts on top of it, right?
Yes.
Programs that can be wrong.
Notice, yes.
So how do you want to deal with that issue?
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, we have a multi-tongued approach to smart contract. The first one is actually to allow to go hunting with a rifle rather than with a cannon, which is, I think, is a much better instrument for the task. So, for instance, if you look at 90% of the smart contracts, what do the people want to do? To allow two people to do an atomic swap. That's all they want to do. So, the first part is to disassemble, to have a simpler and therefore error-free part that takes care of the 99.9. Atomic swap maybe go 90%. To the other 9% you have to do a bit more. But to have a lot of things, building blocks which are programmable, so that and verified, as people like you can actually verify, and so that when people can actually say, well, thank you very much for the offering, but I have actually a customer or an application in mind in which I want to take this tool and this tool and this tool. Right? And I think it's a way better rather than doing general smart contract things. And then when it comes on the smart contract, we are going to have some new ideas, which unfortunately I cannot talk right now, but perhaps a year from now I'll be happy to, in which we are going to be as innovative about smart contracts as we've been innovative about the consensus algorithm. Because in addition to the problem that you correctly stated, which could be largely addressed by selecting small fundamental primitives that people can understand, there is also the problem of the extreme cost of these contracts. Right? The price of gas is tremendously high. If you are a developer and you have a good idea for a smart contract, you can develop it, but then who is going to use it if the cost of gas is so much, right? So we must reduce the cost of gas. So essentially, I think that democracy, if it's not efficient, it doesn't deserve to be there, right? And a blockchain, if it's not efficient, it doesn't serve anybody. So we have to be efficient not only in the consensus, but we have to be efficient also in the smart contracts. And so I totally agree with you. Yeah.
We have a last question for you, Silvio.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for a great presentation. Matt Stolberg Larsen, Tradeshift Frontiers. A keyword that at least I didn't hear in this presentation was privacy. How do you address privacy? We work in the B2B space. Businesses are very concerned with their transactions being private and not everybody on the network being able to see them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your question. So my slides are no longer up, and good so, because we are moving. But the first three things in bold, and there was smart square contract, then the next one was privacy, and then there was ... So privacy is in the equation. But I want to be very careful in handling privacy. I'm a cryptographer, I love privacy, right? But privacy has to be blended with privacy and correctness, because there are legitimate interests of society at large to make sure that a private blockchain doesn't become, the haven for money laundering, right? Nobody is interested in doing this. So we want to be very cautious on how to do this. By the way, one good news is that for this reason, the Algorand Foundation has been enhanced by a wonderful team of cryptographers led by Tal Rabin. In fact, actually, it's the entire cryptographic team of IBM New York who has actually decided to move to the Algorand Foundation. And so they are going to be in charge of the privacy. And by the way, they have tremendous expertise. 90% of the standards in cryptography have been developed by them. They include the inventor of fully homomorphic encryption, which is this technique by which you can compute on encrypted data without ever decrypting. So you don't need to understand the data, but you compute, and you compute what? An encryption of the result. And so I can keep the data on the blockchain or on the cloud, and I want to have a computation. Anybody can do the computation. They return to me an encryption of the result without ever knowing. So there is something to do. Again, to have privacy in a way that is not disruptive society requires technology, and the Algorand Foundation, in my opinion, has a splendid team that they can centrally deliver on this challenge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.